This is episode 28 of Entrepreneurs for a Change. If you like this podcast, please subscribe to our mailing list at entrepreneursforachange.com. Are you ready to be the change? If so, you've come to the right place. You are about to join a movement of entrepreneurs who are empowering people, saving the planet, and turning their passion into profits while creating the lifestyle of their dreams. If you don't believe us, check out our website at entrepreneursforachange.com, a place where you can be inspired, mentored, and supported by a tribe of change-making entrepreneurs just like you. Hello, resilient changemakers. This is Lorna Lee, host of another episode of Entrepreneurs for a Change, a web show about evolutionary entrepreneurs who are changing the world and changing business as usual while designing the lifestyles that they've always dreamed about. The ability to make the best of undesirable circumstances and setbacks and find creative solutions is an important skill to develop as an entrepreneur. The truth is, life will occasionally knock you down. And when that happens, negative emotions, stewing over circumstances you cannot control, or getting angry at yourself is simply a waste of your precious energy. I know this is easier said than done because we have our habitual reactions and emotional triggers, and it's hard to stop the crappy feelings from flaring up. So I made an epic blunder by allowing my Thai visa to run out and missing my flight to the Maldives by 5 minutes. I didn't give myself enough time to clear customs, which was slow, and even more slowed down by the fact that I had to pay the overstay fine. And then I just had to get a cappuccino before getting on that plane. You see, I'm so used to pushing the envelope on time and getting through by the skin of my teeth that it's become a bit of a habit. Well, when I got to my gate, the agent said to me, "You missed your flight." I stared at her dumbly. So she said again, "You missed your flight. It left 5 minutes ago." It started to sink in. I began to mentally calculate the financial cost of this epic blunder, missing my dive boat, the possibility of having to buy the next round trip ticket to anywhere because of my expired visa. I'd also been working a lot and was really looking forward to a week of unplugging completely, so the thought of flying back to Chiang Mai to continue working away while completely wasting all that money and time made me feel like an epic fail. However, being angry at oneself is completely unproductive. So I allowed myself a couple of minutes of feeling crappy and utterly stupid, and then I let go. I started to inquire about options and expressed gratitude to the agent helping me. Thankfully, Aggressive Fleet has a 24-hour on-call agent to help with snafus like this. Fortunately, while I wasn't legally allowed to leave the transit area as my Thai visa had run out, I could at least get on the same flight the next day for a mere $30 change ticket fee. And the dive boat was going to be diving the local area so they could pick me up at the airport at the same time the next day for free. I also had free access to Bangkok Air's Wi-Fi lounge, many restaurants, smoothie and juice bars, a massage parlor where I got the best hour-and-a-half back and neck massage for $40. And if I wanted to pay, I could rent a bed for 8 hours for $156 if I didn't want to sleep in one of the many full-length sofas scattered around the terminal. The airport also had a luxurious transit lounge where, for $30, you get a couple of hours to take a shower, enjoy their hot snack buffet, and open bar. So I could deal with the situation rather comfortably at airport prices and crank out some work. Apart from the missed dives, my situation really wasn't that bad. I also discovered the world of sleeping in airports. Yep, go to sleepinginairports.net for a list of the most sleepable international airports in the world, Bangkok International being one of the top 10. Now, when I look at this whole situation I created for myself, it's small stuff not worth sweating about. But how do you become a master at not letting the big, complicated obstacles of life derail you? Dr. Angelica Underwood is the founder of Match Entrepreneurs, a done-for-you business networking organization where matchmakers connect entrepreneurs seeking help in a specific area with entrepreneurs that have the corresponding expertise. She's also a transformational coach who helps people deal with trauma using Neurolinguistic Programming, otherwise known as NLP. Neurolinguistic programming is an approach to communication, personal development, and psychotherapy developed in the 1970s by Richard Bandler and John Grinder. NLP asserts that there is a correlation between neurological processes, hence neuro, language, hence linguistic, and behavioral patterns learned through life experience, hence programming, that can be modified in order to achieve specific goals in life. Simply put, NLP works with rewiring your belief patterns by changing the way you talk to and think about yourself. In this empowering interview, Angelica will share with us how language has a powerful impact over the way we experience the world, how to uncover and transform the underlying beliefs around money that are holding you back from success, a powerful therapeutic practice that can help you identify and recode the limiting beliefs that continue to plague you from your past, why emotional grief is particularly deadly to entrepreneurs, how one person breaking records enables others to achieve the same success, how to use NLP for sales in a way that is not slimy and manipulative, a great technique you can instantly use to build rapport with your audience. Angelica leaves us with a special gift to you, a powerful NLP technique that you can use to release the grip of a self-limiting belief. She walks me through this technique herself, and we've created an audio and PDF guide that you can download and apply to a self-limiting belief of your own. Get the swipe file along with other tools and resources mentioned in the podcast at entrepreneursforachange.com/28. Now, before diving into the interview, I want to encourage you to rate, review, and download Entrepreneurs for a Change on iTunes. This really helps us reach more people with inspiring stories of entrepreneurs who are changing the world. Also, if these stories inspire you to start a world-changing business of your own, head over to our website at entrepreneursforachange.com and download the Business Changemakers Toolkit to get a jumpstart today. Now on to the show. Hi, Angelica. I'm so glad to have a member of the JV Insider Circle community as a guest on my podcast, Entrepreneurs for a Change. I would love to talk to you about your transformational coaching business and specifically how Neurolinguistic Programming, or NLP, can help entrepreneurs. So if you could start off by introducing yourself to our audience about who you are, what you do, and what inspired you to start your own company.
Oh, thank you. I am Dr. Angelica Underwood, and I am the founder of Match Entrepreneurs. And I'm really excited to be here. Thank you. I focus on poverty consciousness, and I do work with entrepreneurs in the area of going within and really finding their own answers and being able to brand themselves first inside who they are, understanding what they really, really want, and then taking all that piece of information that's within and then bringing it out into the world and getting results. The other thing, I was inspired to be an entrepreneur ever since I was a young girl. I remember being 6 years old and making lemonade and Rice Krispies and even sitting outside my door and selling. I would get all my neighbors to perform, and then I would charge everybody to come and see us within the neighbors. I would go sell tickets. So I've been an entrepreneur ever since I was young, and it's really exciting to share my talents and my gifts to people.
So, Angelica, can you tell us more about Matchpreneurs? What exactly does Matchpreneurs do?
Well, the Match Entrepreneurs, our main goal is to connect other entrepreneurs who are probably experiencing the lone syndrome experience. They probably feel stuck in their business. They don't know how to proceed. And what we do is we interview entrepreneurs that are experiencing that feeling of being stuck. And when we interview them, we find out where they are, and then we will recommend and match them to another expert At the same time, we do what we call coaching. So we'll have coaching, a chaos breakthrough with each client so that they can break through their belief systems, which we'll get into later on during this interview. But that's basically what we do. We help them break through their feeling of being stuck and moving forward, and then match them with somebody else who would be able to help them in that area that they're looking for.
So is this matching service, do you do this for a fee, or is this entirely a free offer that you guys have?
No, we do have a fee, and it really depends on what the person is needing. And so we have different packages that we provide to individual clients.
So do you need to have a pretty robust database of professionals to even begin offering that service? And how did you get people to sign up?
Okay. People can sign up by going to www.matchentrepreneurs.com, and there's 3 different membership levels. We have a free membership level, and they can actually go in and start blogging and connecting with other entrepreneurs. And then we have the next level, which would be the silver, and then the gold. And basically the gold is they could, if they have a desire to open up a local community that's called Match Entrepreneurs, they can do that, and we support them and provide them speakers. And I mean, we do a lot. We just match them with their specific needs that they have, and we do all the legwork for them so that they can get started and move with their success and grow their business.
When did you start this business?
We started last year, but we've had a really great success rate. We have a live radio show every Monday at 6 p.m. Central Time. And I mean, we have more than 1,000 listeners that are going and listening to our calls because we interview experts like you and that have secret nuggets that they share with our audience. And so we interview them, and then we have blogs on our website as well.
So how many members do you have in the Match Entrepreneurs community right now?
It's been growing. I haven't checked it right now, but like I said, we just started, and it's been about 6 months. So it's growing pretty fast. I don't have a number with me, and I would hate to say something that I'm not there because I have not reviewed the numbers, but we've had more than 1,000 right now.
So what do you attribute your greatest success in growing the community to be? What channels did you find to be the most effective in getting the word out about your community and driving signups?
You know, there's different things. I think social media is a big component of growing your business, and my interviews on my Blog Talk radio show, that has really helped us to grow our business and grow our list. So I recommend that if they're starting, social media is the place to start. You know, the Facebook, Pinterest, and even joint partnerships has been a big piece, because when you do joint partnerships, they help you promote either telesummits or my radio show or whatever I am promoting. And I've noticed that my list has grown really fast.
Why did you choose to be on Blog Talk Radio versus on iTunes? I was looking personally at Blog Talk Radio as well, and sometimes it gets overwhelming. It's like, oh my God, where do I publish my podcast? What are the pros and cons, etc.? I'm kind of curious about whether the Blog Talk Radio platform actually is a good one to host your podcast or interview series, and how do you drive signups from there?
Mm-hmm. Well, we went ahead and signed up with Blog Talk Radio Show because we wanted to do our interviews live. You know, we wanted to drive traffic and capture interest in people, you know, listening to something that's really live. Then what we do, we deliver the interviews in a podcast. We're just starting to convert everything, and we are going to deliver it on iTunes, because iTunes has more than 50,000 audience. So I mean, that's just smart. We need to be able to deliver in both formats, I think, because you're going to capture a lot of audience. Those that want to listen live and they can even retrieve the archive and then at the same time deliver it through podcast.
That's really a great idea. I might consider doing that down the road too. I think one of the biggest fears I have is if I do something live, what if nobody shows up? So can you help us understand when you started this talk show on Blog Talk Radio, how did you get people to show up?
Well, you know what? When we first started, we probably had maybe 5 because you can see how many people were live, and we probably had 5. But then, like the next day, we had like 500 people.
Where did they all come from?
I have no idea, but it was really exciting to see that. I'm thinking that a lot of our JV partners were promoting it and that I promoted it. You have the ability to promote it on Twitter, our Facebook, and Blog Talk. So, when you tag and you really have a very good title, people will look for it under Blog Talk, and people were downloading it, and we have more than 500. So that's why I'm saying right now we have more than 1,000 people downloading our previous recordings. So it's exciting to see that people are still listening live and downloading the previous calls or interviews.
I'm amazed personally at where all my listeners come from. I mean, I literally have listeners from all over the world. It's exciting from tiny, obscure countries. I can't even remember, but I'm like, wow, I can't believe I have a listener there,
That's exciting. And how do you know through your iTunes?
I use Libsyn audio hosting. So the Libsyn analytics program will actually tell me where my listeners come from. It tells you how many downloads you get and how many listeners and where the listeners are from, and specifically also how many listeners you get per episode over time as well. iTunes doesn't actually give you those statistics, but through the actual Libsyn program or tool, you can get those that data. But the downloads actually occur through your blog post. So when you post your blog post and have the audio player, if you use the Libsyn, so you have your audio player and there's a download link. So a lot of people, download from there. So that's where it's picking up the stats.
Wonderful.
Yeah, great. So I want to move on to a topic of mine that is just a topic that's really dear to my heart, because I really find that neurolinguistic programming has given me a lot of value in my life and has really helped me a lot personally, but also in my business too. So I'd love to talk to you about this particular expertise that you have. First of all, can you help us understand what neurolinguistic programming actually is?
Absolutely. NLP, Neurolinguistic Programming, we're going to use the acronym NLPs for those listeners out there that you have no idea what it is. NLP is a respectful body of knowledge, and it seems to have been drawn from general semantics, linguistics, hypnosis, family therapy, metaphors, and many, many other disciplines. So it really becomes a study of what works. It's the results that you want to produce. And how do you produce the results in business, education, and therapy? So basically, when you're defining NLP, if you look at neuro, it deals with the nervous system that relates to the mind and all the senses. And then language, of course, deals with linguistic, which includes neural representations that are encoded in pictures, sounds, feelings, words that we use, which is like a self-talk. And then programs, the programs that we run inside ourselves, the things that we do inside our head. That's what represents a program. So NLP is basically that study of excellence, that we have an opportunity to change things inside if things are not working for us.
Yeah, I understand it as a way in which you can rewire the neural pathways in your mind. So I think one of the things that we often take for granted is the fact that we have a story about ourselves and we have a story about the world. And sometimes those stories are, more often than not, those stories are actually very limiting. They limit our potential of who we can be. It limits our understanding of the world in all its myriad possibilities. So one of the benefits that I found with neurolinguistic programming is really just rewiring my belief system to actually be open to different ways of interpreting phenomena in the world, interpreting meaning in the world from my experience of the phenomena around me. And one of the ways in which I find it works is through the use of language and linguistics. So what's really fascinating is many years ago, I actually was a student of linguistics in university before I switched over to diplomatic studies. And it's amazing how much our language actually affects our belief system. So when you are born into a country and a culture, you are born into a language. And sometimes that language has limitations in the way that it has certain attributes in the way that culture experiences the world. Like, for example, in the Chinese language, there is no past or future tense. Everything is in the present. However, you would use past or future modifying words. You would say, yesterday I did this, or tomorrow I will do this. But it's very different from some of the, Romance languages like French, Spanish, Portuguese, Italian, which has different grammatical tenses to reflect past or future or conditional even. So a lot of, we take for granted that our language even has this powerful impact over the way we see the world and experience it. Another really, powerful example is that all the words, or the number of words that Eskimos have for snow. So that's a really deep understanding of snow. And another example would be within the Tibetan culture, there are so many different understandings of the nature of the human mind, different levels of consciousness that we would never really understand in English, for example.
And it's very interesting because words are very, very powerful. In fact, they create a lot of pictures and images, and that's how we encode information, because everything's information. Everything that happens, everything we know is information, but it's encoded in the brain in such a way that it's categorized. So everything that we see, it's really a program. Beliefs are internal programs that we use unconsciously to interpret and make sense of our world. And that's how we perceive the world. So, Robert Dilts uses more technical terms to define beliefs and these internal programs like cause, meaning, and boundaries of what we're creating. So, just a simple example.
Who is Robert? I'm sorry. Who is Robert Dilts?
Robert Dilts is one of, we have Richard Bandler, who was the founder of neurolinguistic programming. Then you have Robert Dilts, who studied under him and studied other theories and linguistics and, other disciplines to understand neurolinguistic programming. So he went further into the hierarchies of learning and what cause and effect mean, and basically, causes a certain effect in our life. And when entrepreneurs understand that, that we need to take responsibility for what is happening in our lives, they will begin to be in charge of their business and their life. It doesn't matter how much you know about marketing and how all these strategies, if inside you have internal limiting beliefs that are going to prevent you from achieving that success and achieving results. So they need to be in charge of their own results so that they can produce their success. Because really when you look at success is doing things with ease. And if you're not experiencing success, then there's a lot of resistance. There's a lot of obstacles. There's a lot of limiting beliefs that are preventing you from experiencing success.
Well, I think one of the things that I commonly see in the entrepreneurial community, especially with early stage entrepreneurs and solopreneurs, I mean, not the kind of entrepreneurs that have been able to raise, hundreds of thousands of dollars from, venture capital funders, for example, but the ones that are really, trying to bootstrap their business with their own money, which is a very large population of entrepreneurs. There's a lot of struggle around starting and growing your business. So in a way, it's kind of like we want to achieve that success, but it seems like the journey to get there can be very challenging. So I'm curious to know, what your take is on the entrepreneurial struggle syndrome. Is it a mindset? Is it just a natural part of the fact that it's really hard work to grow a business? Which of the two is correct, or is it both?
It could be both, but I really think that mindset is a huge piece. I mean, when I'm working with some of these entrepreneurs and doing some of the breakthrough sessions and coaching sessions with them, I find out that their value system, because we all have value systems, and there's a hierarchy in our values. And money, I mean, as an entrepreneur, we're trying to make money, right? And have abundance of money and material stuff and whatever they might consider valuable for them. However, when we're doing the value system to see where money is, sometimes money is not even in their hierarchy. Because there's shame of having money, or they feel that money is bad, or there's some type of belief tied into money. So it's not even there. Or, for example, I just finished working with a gentleman. He had money as and when we're putting it in the hierarchy, it was number 26. And I told him, how are you going to create a business if it's not even one of your priority? It's not on top of the list. So we went ahead and shifted. And I tell him and I tell people, it's like when you're dialing a number, if I wanted to call you and I dialed a certain sequence of numbers, I would be able to reach you. But if I dialed one number incorrectly, I would not reach you. And I would not get the results I want. The same thing with the value system. If money is not in the sequence that you want it to be, then guess what? You're not going to get the results that you want. So you have to shift it and maybe make it number 2 or 1.
What if money is number 1, but you still haven't quite gotten the level of success that you want?
Well, there might be something else. I mean, I can tell you that money was one of mine in the hierarchy. However, and I would get an abundance of money. I mean, I would get 15, 20,000 immediately, but it would come in and then it would leave me right away, immediately. I had something would come up. We would have an accident. Something ridiculous would happen. But what I found out was that I couldn't hold money. One of the reasons, and it sounds silly, but it was a belief system that if I had it, I had to pay all these taxes to the IRS. And then people would be asking me to lend them money, like my family. They would always be asking me. So I'd rather not have it, because then they wouldn't even pay me. It's ridiculous. But you know what? It was a belief system that I had.
So How did you shift it?
Once I discovered it, I had to shift it and go deeper and recreate something different in my mind. Because like I said, we encode information, either what we call modality, which would be visual, auditory, kinesthetic, or even olfactory, through smell. So I had to figure out how I encoded that information and then re-encode something different in my brain. It sounds difficult, but it's not. It's easier said. It's easier done than said,
So if an entrepreneur is struggling around money, let's say they're not generating sustainable income, and I see this over and over again, just, it's either there's uncertainty in the cash flow is a common problem among entrepreneurs, especially those that do one-to-one work or one-on-one coaching or consulting. How do you recommend for that person, that entrepreneur who hasn't achieved the level of financial success that they want? How would you advise them to address the problem using a mind shift approach?
There's different types of strategies that can be done. I mean, the strategies that I use is either hypnosis, because it is at a deeper unconscious level. So we need to be able to figure out what beliefs do you have. Like I said, I worked with this individual, and money had nothing to do with why he didn't have it there. It had to do with the belief of not being good enough and deserving anything. So when you have that category of not deserving anything, there's a lot of things that are going to be connected, either relationships, wife, or husband or girlfriend or whatever, in addition to money, because everything is energy. And if people understand that information is energy, and then it aligns to those powerful words of not deserving, then this person felt he didn't deserve it. And when he understood that part, it was a big shift in his life that he called me later and he's like, oh my God, you have no idea what happened. I mean, he even got this other job that paid him more, and it was within weeks of the experience of having that shift. So it is very exciting when you really go deeper. And like I said, understanding those powerful words and then how everything's connected. What I would like to tell your audience is that many times when I'm speaking to people in my audience, I show them a piece of paper and it's white. And I ask them, what color is this? And they say white. And I ask them again like 15 times or more. And I'm like, what color is it? And they're all saying white, white, white. And then I ask the audience, what do cows drink? And I'm going to let you kind of think, what is it that they drink? If you're saying milk, a lot of my audience will say milk also. But in reality, what you're doing is you're making an association from the white paper, which is white, and milk being white. And you make this association. And there's really no relationship from paper and milk. But the association is there. So it's really important that when your entrepreneurs have a limiting belief of money, there's a deeper association connected to maybe not deserving, not worthy, something. There's some type of belief, but the only way they can get there is maybe through one of the strategies, like I said, that I use is hypnosis, the neurolinguistic processes, and there's another strategy that I use that it's called timeline therapy.
I love timeline therapy. I've been working with that myself. It's incredibly powerful. Can you explain to us briefly what timeline therapy actually is?
Absolutely. Timeline therapy is basically, it's also using the NLP concept, but, we work back with some incidents. We go back in your timeline to previous experiences that you had so that you have that awareness of where a certain belief system started, and then we break it and we encode something different so that you could be more successful in your life. I mean, that's the easiest I can put it, but it's very, very fast. It's within 15-20 minutes, we will get you the results that you want to encode new information in your brain.
So one of the biggest challenges for entrepreneurs is to actually have to self-generate your business. So one of the challenges is if personal problems arise, such as a death in the family, a breakup, divorce, car accident, this can impact your ability to run your business and generate income. So if you lose your ability to generate income, problems can quickly become overwhelming. One case that recently crossed my awareness. So I recently became aware of this one news story. The CEO, a young 28-year-old woman, really bright, super smart, ambitious. She was a CEO of a BitChange exchange called First Meta, and she was found dead in her Singapore apartment. And the authorities suspect that the cause of death was suicide. One of her last Facebook updates was this article that's been widely circulated among the entrepreneurial community. In fact, I posted it to my Facebook wall a few weeks ago. And it's an article by Inc.com called The Psychological Price of Entrepreneurship. I will include the link in the show notes. So for me personally, In the aftermath of recovering from a personal traumatic event that impacted me 6 months ago and had a really heavy toll on my business, I turned to NLP to help me process a lot of the grief and the trauma related to that experience. So could you help share with us specific NLP techniques that might help entrepreneurs manage grief and trauma so that they can remain productive and able to manage their and run their businesses?
Absolutely. First, I would like your audience to understand what grief is. And grief is a very deep sorrow. There's a lot of sadness, there's anguish, there's pain, there's distress, there's agony. And really, we begin to experience this when we feel that we've lost something or where we feel that we're not belonging. So if you understand that it comes when you're losing something or when you feel that you're not belonging or that you're not good enough, you will experience grief. And then what is pain? Well, pain is tension and discomfort caused by how we respond to stress and threat. So basically, if you feel that you don't belong or you feel that you've lost something or you feel that you're not good enough, then we go into survival mode. And when you're going into survival mode, we will experience a sense of trauma, of perceiving that we're not whole, that we're not complete. There's a lot of emotions that come up for us, like fear, helplessness, loss, and not feeling that we are in control of what is happening to us. So if your audience understands that piece, what really happens to our body is that we go into shock. And when we go into shock, then that basically freezes any action that we are going to take because we feel that if we take action, we are going to be hurt even more, or we're not going to be accepted and we're not going to be part of something. And as an entrepreneur, we don't take action. We don't take action. So what we ask is that you find some type of coach that's working with NLP or timeline therapy, or I'm suggesting even hypnosis, so that you can go beyond and discover what is really going inside internally so that you can shift it and you can begin taking action and achieve the success that you want. And many times is taking those baby steps. And when you take that baby step, it's like, nothing happened to me. I'm safe. And then you take the next step and the next step. And it's feeling secure and safe and certainty that will allow you to continue and creating momentum. And that momentum is powerful, you know?
Yeah, I find some specific techniques around diminishing the powerful impact of past traumatic events to be highly effective, especially when working with the colors and the sensations and sounds that you have in your mind related to those events and just turning them down in your brain so that instead of appearing in your mind in technicolor, you make it black and white and you turn the sound down. And that can be an incredibly powerful way of reducing the trauma associated with something that happened to you in the past.
Absolutely. The other thing, there's so many strategies when you're using NLP or timeline therapy, but one of the way that the brain functions, it's always looking for proof. And it's looking for evidence because those are the frontal lobes. That's how you make decisions. Has anybody been successful doing this? Who's done it? Have I been successful? Have I done it in the past? We're always looking for that information. So if you want to make a shift, you could also figure out who's done it in the past. If you haven't, then figure out who has so that you can have proof and you can say, well, you know what? Anthony Robbins is very successful, or Oprah, or someone else who's already achieved the success that you want to achieve, so that you can say, if they've done it, then I can do it too. you know?
Yeah, it's fascinating how our belief systems can really work both ways. So if you had a limiting belief, which could be, for example, oh, the only successful people out there were the people that started with money. And then you start to observe the world around you and you find examples that really solidify that viewpoint. And of course, you keep finding evidence and therefore it becomes your interpretation of reality, and therefore you have this storyline that really limits your potential, especially if you are not one of those people that started off with money. But then by flipping it around and looking at all the examples of people that did start with nothing, like Oprah, for example, by continuing to find examples of people that were, rags to riches stories, it's possible to completely shift that disempowering story and replace it with an empowering one.
Absolutely. Roger Bannister, he ran the mile in less than 4 minutes, and it was believed that no human being could achieve that speed. But within 6 weeks after Bannister's mile, another man ran the mile under 4 minutes. In fact, in the same year, 13 people ran the mile under 4 minutes. So it's being able to find out who's done it, who's broke the record, so that they can achieve the same success, and then creating that in your mind. Now, the other important piece that I want to say, if you're not looking for a coach that's doing NLP or hypnosis or timeline therapy, your environment is also very, very important. Let's say that you have a disorganized room and an office, and there's papers all over the place. All that information is taken inside internally, and then you create unorganized information in your brain as well. So the more organized and the colors and items that you put out there, they're symbols that will help you create internal representations to achieve the either joy, success, harmony, anything that you want to create in your life,
Gosh, I should clean up right now. I'm just looking around my room like, oh my God, disorganization. I got stuff thrown on the floor. All right. So NLP is often associated with sales techniques. How is that? And is it possible to use NLP to influence sales in a way that's not slimy and manipulative?
Absolutely. I mean, what we do is we need to find out how a person is making decisions. And the way you do that is that we look at eye patterns and to determine how a person encoded information and how they're making decisions and purchasing something. Are they visual? Is that their primary mode of learning? And if it is, that's their primary mode of purchasing items, because they need to see how a car looks. And then maybe the next mode would be the olfactory. They want to smell it. They prefer smell. So they probably want to see it. They want to sit in it and feel it, That would probably be the next step, the visual, the feeling, and then maybe the smell. I don't know. But you need to determine by asking them specific questions. When you purchased your first car, when you purchased your first house, what was the first thing you did? And then you will listen to the modalities that they're using. Is it visual? Is it auditory? Is it kinesthetic? Is it olfactory? And when they give you the sequence of what they did, then when you are presenting something to them, you will present it to them in the same fashion. You would use the vision, the visuals, you would use the auditory, like saying, but your family is going to be so excited and you're going to be hearing them saying that they're so happy and proud of you. And then you're going to be able to feel very comfortable when you take this home. You add all those words and you empower them. And then people feel like, wow, they have no idea why they love it so much. But you've used all the sequence of how they make decisions.
In presenting the thing that you want to sell to them.
Exactly, when you want to sell something to them. It's easier when you have them either in front of you or when you're speaking to them in one-to-one. And it's a lot different when you're creating emails and you're designing your website and all that. But I would make sure that I have different words so that when they're reading, they're actually feeling, they're seeing things, and they're hearing, and you're using all the sensories, and you're really making deeper connections with your audience.
Wow, that's really amazing. I will take that into account for my next website redesign. Okay, so how else can NLP help business people?
Also, like I said, shifting belief systems and coding information as an entrepreneur, there's so many ways that they can use it to work with their clients. Another way would be even sensory acuity is another piece. You look at a client and you can see shifts in their color tone. You can see a shine, or you can see their body language when they're shutting down and they're not listening anymore. So what we do is match and pace. We lead, let's say we match how they're sitting, how their language, their tone, their volume, and then you could also match it and then shift it to lead them where you want to take them. Maybe somebody's shutting down and they have their arms crossed and their legs crossed, and they're probably in a posture that's not open to listening. So you probably want to sit in the same posture and everything and maybe nodding. And then all of a sudden you will shift it and open up your arms and your legs. And then you're going to see that they're going to do the same thing.
Mimicking what the other person is doing is actually an incredibly powerful rapport building technique.
Absolutely. Even when you're a speaker and you're speaking in front of a large group, there's something that's called the monkey effect. So you will have people who are leaders and they either know it or they don't. But when they're in an audience, the leaders will move an arm or they will move their body, and then you'll see like this monkey effect where there's other people in alignment with them and everybody starts shifting and moving. So what I do is I find my leaders in my crowd and I will always be very focused on them and I will guide them. So let's say they moved and then I will actually move like they did, and then I will bring them back to my attention so that they can guide their followers and I can have everybody's attention. It's really interesting, but I teach that in my master's NLP because that's a more advanced technique.
Wow, it sounds fascinating. So we're about at the end of our interview. I'd like to leave my guests with this question. Is this business your life purpose? If not, what is?
Oh, absolutely. This is my life's purpose because I love what I do. And when I work, I get lost in my work. And it's just my passion. I mean, I'm so involved and I get so involved when I'm working with people and helping them achieve their success makes me feel successful as well.
Awesome. So, Angelica, how can we best stay in touch with you?
The best way would be under angelicaunderwood.net, and they would either connect with me on my website and also angelicaunderwood@me.com. That's my email, and they can reach me there if they need to.
Okay, great. Thank you so much for joining us, and I look forward to checking you out online.
Well, thank you for having me, and I want to thank all your audience for listening, and see you next time.
Thanks, folks, for listening to the Entrepreneurs for Change podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please help us reach more people with inspiring stories like this one by giving us a 5-star rating in iTunes. If this podcast inspires you to join the movement of change-making entrepreneurs, we'd love to give you a jumpstart with our free Business Changemakers Toolkit, which you can download at www.entrepreneursforachange.com/join. If you have a change maker in mind you'd love for us to interview, go to entrepreneursforachange.com/suggest and tell us who and why. Finally, feel free to stop by facebook.com/entrepreneursforachange to share your thoughts and say hello.